Hello, my name's Steve Ringer and welcome to issue 11 of Feeder Fishing. Right, today I've brought you to Larford Lakes. In previous issues we've been on the Specimen Lake fishing for skimmers, and then we also fished there for carp. But today we're on a new one in the form of the Match Lake. Now the Match Lake's a lot smaller, but it still holds plenty of big fish, and it's the bigger carp we're going to be going for today. Condition wise, it's pretty bad for feeder. It's flat calm, bright sunshine, really cold overnight. The level of the lake's also down, so it's very shallow, so it's going to be tough, I'm not kidding myself. Sitting on your own at this time of year makes it much harder. In the summer, I'd be thinking now, sat on my own, 300 pound, no problem. This time of year, I'm literally going to take every bite as it comes, and my target today, if I could catch anything over 5 fish, I'd be really happy. But there's a skill in catching 5 fish in winter, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So we're going to be using tiny little feeders, maybe catching and moving. The secret at this time of year is not spooking the fish, and if you do spook them, you've got to find them again. It's all about location, so we're going to cover all those subjects and hopefully catch a few fish at the same time. But before we start fishing, let's talk about bait. Okay, on the bait front, your first thing you'll notice is I haven't got lots of bait with me. Yeah, I've got quite a few different items, but they're to give me more options. But quantity-wise, there really isn't a lot. Firstly, as I said, we're going to be fishing a little tiny hybrid, so I'm not going to need many pellets. Got a bag of fishery micros of 2 mils. And a lot of people say to me, how do you soak your pellets this time of year? I'll just run through it quickly. You don't need a lot. A pint, I'd say, I've got more than a pint there, but a pint is plenty. And all I do is put them in a 3-pint tub in the Guru bait strainer, cover them totally with cold water. Normally I'd do this at home. I normally do it just before I leave. So by the time I get there, they've soaked up the water and they're nice and spongy and ready to go. But all I'll do is cover them with cold water, leave them for 45 seconds, just leave them there while I run through, obviously, the other baits. I've also got a bag of 4 mils. Not going to put them round the feeder or on the feeder. What I'm thinking with them is later on I might want to put some bait in somewhere. If there is an odd fish feeding, or even if it's hard, I might just decide there's an area in my swim, I can put a bit of bait in, and I can put some 4 mils and some corn in. That's why I've got them with me. Literally 2 tins of corn, bag of 4 mils, just in case I want to feed an area. Most of my day I think it's going to be trying to catch a fish. I'm almost dobbing with a feeder, trying to catch one and then trying to catch another one. Right, that's roughly been 45 seconds. Just a couple more seconds. Just give them a nice stir. Then all I'll do, take them out to drain, give them a nice shake, ditch the water, and I'll put them back in there. I always like to give them a good shake. What I don't want is the ones at the bottom getting totally crushed. So I'll give them a nice shake like that. And what I'll do, leave them for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, literally I'll split them in half. Or actually better still, rather than splitting them in half, all I'll do, tip them out into that tub and then leave them to stand. The reason I do that after 15 minutes is just to stop them ones at the bottom getting crushed. I don't know if you've ever noticed when you do your micro sometimes, the ones at the top are lovely, get to the ones at the bottom, and because of the weight of the water and the pellet, it's totally crushed them and they've gone all like sloppy and they're not fit for anything. So all I'll do, I'd leave them in there for 15 minutes, still a bit of water coming out, tip them into the 3-pint tub and then leave them for stand for sort of another 15-20 minutes, and then they're ready to go. When they are ready to go, just give them a little squirt of the swim stim pellet soak. You can't put too much on, but you don't need a lot. For a pint of pellets, I'll just put like 4 capfuls on. I'm not going to do it now because they're not quite ready yet. I like to do it when they've already sponged up. But what that does, gives them a slightly yellow colour, but also a bit of flavour. When I'm fishing such a small feeder, I just think I want more pulling power. And that F1 Sweet Liquid just gives me a little bit more pulling power and makes my pellets a little bit different to everyone else's. On the subject of making your pellets different, anyone who watched, I can't remember the issue number, but the one on the Specimen Lake, when I was carping, will know that goo was really good. So I've got some goo with me today. I didn't try it early enough that day, but today I'm not going to start on it, but it's going to be on my bait tray, and hopefully it might give me an edge later on in the session. Hook bait wise, it's pretty much wafters, wafters and more wafters. Because I'm fishing such small feeders, the reason I'm fishing such tiny feeders, I will talk more in more detail when we're fishing, is to keep disturbance to a minimum. But if you're using a small feeder, you also want a small hook bait. So I've got some little 4.5 Ringers wafters. I've got them in orange and yellow. Yellow at Larford, I'm not sure why, is a really, really good colour. So yellow will probably be my starting point, but I've got them in orange, and as you can see there, yellow. So I'm going to start on a little tiny bait, small feeder. But if there is a few carp showing, or it's really hard, and I want to leave it out a long time and just try and fish for one fish, then a big 10mm takes some beating. So that's my hook baits. Something I don't carry very often, but I am today, is bread. Purely because I read the match reports from yesterday, and although it fished hard, there was an odd fish caught on the bread. So I've got some with me. Again, if you haven't got it with you, you can't use it. But it's just going to give me another option. The water's quite clear, clearer than I'd normally expect for Larford. So bread might get me a bite. It's there anyway, and like I said, if you haven't got it with you, you can't catch with it. So that's my bait. Not a lot of it, but there's enough there to catch £100 if they want to feed, or £10 if we only get one pull. So let's see how it goes. Right, it's time to start fishing. The first thing I want to point out is I haven't cast in at all. I'm having to sit in the water today because the level's really low for the nets. Also, it makes playing fishing a little bit easier when I'm sat out in the water, so I'm not trying to pull them into inches of water. It's still shallow anyway. And for those that don't know Larford, I'm on the shallow bank. Far bank, which is called the Burr Bank's the deeper bank of the two. But with the level being so low at the minute, I doubt there's more than 5-6 foot of water all the way across. And up to the middle, locals will probably tell me maybe slightly different, but I don't think there's any more than sort of 2 foot of water pretty much right up to the middle. So it's very shallow. Water's quite clear. The fish are going to be really, really spooky. That's the reason I'm looking at little tiny feeders. I don't want to be crashing a big feeder in. These fish aren't going to want to feed. You know, they'll feed if I can get a bait in front of them, but they're not going to want to come to a pile of bait, particularly early in the session. So I've got a little mini 18-gram hybrid with a long stem in it. And what I've done is I've clipped it up at 16 metres to start. I've done that with my sticks behind me. I've put clips on at 16 metres, 18 metres and 20 metres. I don't want to be chucking all over the place. You know, I mean, there's an odd fish, like pimping, I'm pretty sure they're carp, pimping down the middle. But my worry is, if I go straight out to the middle, then I'm just going to spook the fish and they're going to get harder and harder to catch as they go further away. So I'm going to start at 16 metres, hopefully mug one there. I've got a little tiny, let me just test that, I've got my tub of water. Little tiny 4.5mm yellow wafter on. Micros in the feed, obviously little 18-gram. Short 4-inch hook length, 019 end gauge and a size 12 QM1. You might think little feeder but big hook. I mean, I'm of the school of thought that can't find it harder to deal with big hooks, and like every fish that sucks the bait in today, I need to count. So like I said, I've clipped it up at 16. I'm trying to keep disturbance to a minimum. So I feathered that in. And I was tempted to start shorter, but it's such an important decision, that first cast of the day. I've started what I think, started the watch as well, what I think is as short as I can start and give myself a chance of definitely catching a fish. You know, when I'm looking out there now and sort of bang down the middle, there's bubbles coming up. But I'm going to try and fish it really slack. Everything I'm doing is designed to hopefully not spook any fish that are in the swim. Every time I cast, to a degree, I'm spooking fish. So the less casts I can make today, the better. First 16 metres first cast. I'm going to give it, depending on signs, just going to keep a slight bend in the tip. If I get a few liners, then I might give it 25 minutes, half an hour. If I don't get a sign at 16, inside 15 minutes, then I'm going to go straight to 18. I mean, my idea would be, particularly in a match scenario, by starting short, I'm not going to get this advantage today because there's no one else on the lake. But in a match scenario, if I started short, everyone else tends to start a bit further out. The fish will push into that safe area behind where I'm chucking. So as I work, hopefully then I'll catch a couple on that short line, then just work my way out. But the fish will stay in front of me for that bit longer, purely for the fact there's no line landing there, no line running through the swim, and no feeders landing there, which is going to scare them. But today it's very different, purely because of the fact the fish can go anywhere in the lake, and if they don't want to feed, then they're not going to stay in front of me. But I'm sat in a good area. I'm on 18, which I looked at the match results. I think it produced like a big 30 or a low 40 pound yesterday, but it was only like 5 or 6 fish, which shows you're not fishing for loads of bites. But the first thing I need to do is get a bite. I mean, what I've set up wise, got a little 10-foot. I've set 2 little 10-foot tournaments up, which I'm hoping to do 99% of my fishing on. But because we're on the lake on our own today, and because of the fact I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to chase them, and it also could be rock hard. I've also got an 11-foot SLR for chucking right across. You know, when you do fish an odd match on here where they peg single bank, and you can catch some fish short, but also you can catch them right across. There's another fish moved down the middle then. So I'm thinking, if it's really hard, maybe 2.5 hours in, it's not going to hurt to have a chuck right across, because it's totally safe water over there. It's also a little bit deeper over there, but it just gives me another option. But to start with, this has been up 2.5 minutes. Going to fish this 16-metre chuck. I'm not expecting quick bites, mainly because I think the fishing's going to be really tough. But I do think there'll be little balls of fish, and if I can drop on one, I'd like to think there'll be a few line bites and a few indications. As yet, the tip's not moved at all, but like I say, that's not a surprise. It was really cold last night, and I wish there was a ripple on. I think in this shallow water, a ripple would really help me, but we haven't got one, so that's that. The only advantage to no ripple is I can see like where there's an odd fish pimping. When I first got here, there was a few fish moving close, but even trying to be quiet. Is that an indication? No. But even though I've tried to be quiet, you've got to get in the water. I've put nets in, etc., and it's noticeable. Since I've put my box down here, the fish have gradually moved further and further away already. But by starting short, trying to stay as quiet as I can, I'm hopeful we're going to be able to pick a few fish off, but time will tell. So, got that little 4.5 mil wafter on. I'm going to give that, got another feeder ready there. I'm going to give this that 15 minutes, and then unless I get some signs, I'm going to go straight out to 18. Like I said, I've done 3 clips, 16, 18 and 20. I mean, a little bit of info I had that was 20 was a good line, but because there was a few fish moving really short, I just felt it worth 15 minutes. So 15 minutes at 16, hopefully a fish or a couple of indications. If no signs, then out to 18 for another 15 minutes. And then we'll be at 20. And if we're at 20, say 45 minutes in and we've not had a sign, I think it's pretty safe to say we're in for a tough day, but let's see how it goes. So, I've done the 15 minutes at 16 minutes. I've actually gone, as you can see there, to 17. The only reason being I had a tiny little flicker. Could have been a little roach or a little skimmer. But also, after 13 minutes, I saw, because it's so calm and it's so shallow, I can see every movement. I saw a fish vortex at, I don't know, maybe 12 metres out to the right, but it made me think, oh, there's one in the area. I'll just give it another couple of minutes. But I had no big liners, no indications where I thought, oh, that could be a carp. So I've definitely not dropped on a ball of fish, that is for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another ball. You might be thinking, why isn't he made another ball up ready to go? Well, the answer is, when you make a ball up ready to chuck, the longer in advance you make it, the slower it breaks down. And with the water temperature being so low at the minute, I want my pellets off this feeder as fast as possible. So before we reel in, nice gunshot there, I'm literally going to make the ball up, keeping it nice and skinny. I'm not looking to build a swim, I'm looking to catch a fish. So you can see there, I could make it a little bit skinnier, which I might do later in the session, but nice and skinny, not overloading the feeder. So that clip's on at 16. Just flip the clip off, and now next chuck I'll be at 18. Like I said, I've had no indications other than that little flicker that which I don't think was a carp, unless it just caught its fin on the line. It was more of like a little fish jab. Just trying to get that feeder to land as quietly as possible. Probably a little bit deeper than I said earlier. I reckon it might be 3 foot out there, which doesn't sound a lot, but 3 foot's better than 18 inch. I've got a little bit of a count. You do get a bit of a count with a hybrid. Not like a 1 count, but I can feel a drop. So that's at 18 metres. I'm loath to sort of start chopping and changing hook baits at the minute. I always think when it's going to be as difficult as this is, you've got to go with what you think your best options are for the first sort of hour. And I've always done really well on yellow, so I'm going to stick with a little yellow. And maybe in the second hour I'll start chopping and changing a bit more. But I only had 1 cast. Oh, need to start that watch. And to be honest, don't feel like I landed it. Well, I didn't get any indications to tell me I chucked it where there was any fish, so moving out to 18 now, there's a tiny bit of ripple getting up. Which I don't think can be a bad thing. But it's just amazing, like how when I got here, there were fish moving all the way along from sort of 16 to sort of 20. Fish moving all the way along, all within sort of 15 metres of the bank. Then literally, I haven't cut. Bear in mind, I didn't cast out. You know, I mean, I'm a massive believer that casting out before the start just scares fish, particularly on shallow venues like this. Bear in mind, I didn't cast out, but obviously I've had to put my box in, put my keep nets in. And as soon as I've done that, there's not a sign of a fish within sort of 5 pegs either side. I mean, it's like they just back away. They're so clever. I'm hoping by sort of being patient, getting my timings right, we're still going to be able to nick a few. It'd be nice to get a few indications, I will admit. I mean, indications always make me think, at least my feeder's in amongst a few fish. When you're in amongst fish, you've got a chance of a bite, but it's early days, yeah. I was hoping for like that quick fish that would have got us up and running. And I always think this time of year, your first hour, maybe sort of from 2 o'clock till 3, they're your best chances in the middle. Unless you're on a pile, you're just looking for an odd bite. So I still maintain getting 1 bite's the hardest part. If I can get 1, if I could get sort of 5 or 6 carp, I'd be really happy with that today. But at the minute, we're on 0. So going to give this 15 minutes again. Just looking for indications more than anything. I mean, I don't want to over-disturb the swim, but equally I don't want to spend lots of time fishing in an area where there's no fish. It might be one of those days where I'm going to have to pick where I think the best spot to catch a carp is, which at the minute would probably be down the middle, chuck it there and leave it for 30 minutes. Because the longer it's been in the water and it's really hard, quite often the more chance of a bite, but it's a bit early to be doing that just yet. I didn't want to sort of, I don't want to go to the middle ever early. So that would be sort of on an hour, I might be in the middle thinking, right, half an hour chuck, see if we can bore one on, but we're a long way off that just yet. So hopefully you might join me in a minute while I'm playing one. If not, it'll be the move out to 20, which will probably be in, looking at that, it's been out 2 minutes 50. In another sort of 12 minutes, we'll either be making a move again or playing a fish. So let's see what happens. Well, we've got a bite, but it's not what I was looking for. It's a fish. Little skimmer. You can see, nailed on the 4.5mm yellow and the 12 QM1. Didn't add a little tiny, probably 8-10 ounce, which better than nothing, but not what we've come for. Had a little indication just before it, and that was a drop back. Still no real clues as to where the carp are. I'm clipped up at 18, so because the clip stayed on, I don't really want to have a chuck taking it off and go further. And that'd been out 10 minutes, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to 18, but I'm just going to sort of work the swim a bit. I've just gone to the right, so like, probably gone 4 metres to the right of where I just caught that skimmer from. Like I said, I'm not trying to build a swim, I'm trying to catch mug a carp, so to speak. I'm trying to drop it where there might be one. And like, having caught that skimmer, then I don't really see the point of going back to that spot now, because it's not the intended species, and I don't think any carp this early in the day are going to come over any bait, so I'm going to give that another 15 and then maybe move out. There's literally like, although there is a little tiny ripple on now, there's no fish moving, so I've got no idea. I'm pretty sure they've backed off, but as to where to, it's difficult to tell because, like I say, they're not giving themselves away. And it's hard to see them little pinprick bubbles now. There's a little ripple on. I'm going to stick with the little yellow. I mean, if skimmers do become a problem, well, not a problem, but they're not what I've come for, then I'll maybe look at bigger hook baits. But at the minute, it's just that was a fish in the net. Oh, okay, not the required one, but a fish. Because I'm sat on my own, I've just got this feeling I need to be a bit further out, but in a match I'd have the opposite feeling, as in I'd be happy leaving that safe zone. Oh, there's a fish. Right across the other bank. In a match I'd be happy leaving that sort of safe zone, thinking, let them fish back off into quiet water, then I'll pick them off. So we'll stick with it for the first hour. Well, first 45, 50 minutes anyway. And then it might be a case of, because I'm on my own, I'm just going to have to go searching, and I might have to go long to do it. So there is a bit more water on that other bank, and it could be they're just sat in that little bit of deeper water. But what I didn't want to do was chuck there straight away, maybe catch one first cast and then spook them for the rest of the day. This way I'm trying to think of a bit more of a long-term way of catching them. And bear in mind, I'm only fishing for another fish in exactly the same place. I'm only fishing for like 4 or 5 bites. So yeah, I can get 2 in 2 chucks. It's just a question of finding those fish, and then when I find them, hopefully I can catch them. Just be nice to get a few signs, especially with the water being so shallow. I mean, it tells me straight away there's not many fish milling around close in on this bank at the minute. Whether that's because I'm sat here and they're spooked. The only thing I'd say is if they had spooked, then I'd expect to see them down there, like to my left, maybe up to my right, topping close in. Whereas all the fish that are now moving are topping sort of middle over. I'm a big believer in like fish telling you where they are at this time of year, so I think that's sometimes the best way you can find them is to spot one. And once I've sort of got this 45, 50 minutes out of the way, if we haven't managed a fish, I'm going to be using like observation of like any bubbles, any fish topping, to sort of almost try and cast to. Because where there's one fish, there's normally more. But like I say, we're off the mark with a skimmer, so going to give this the 15 because it's in new water, because it's gone to the right. And if no signs, go to 20, and then we'll be sort of 45, 50 minutes in, and then it's time to go proper searching. So see what happens. I'm at 18 metres. Obviously had that skimmer back out there now. It's been out 18 minutes, it's not moved. But there's a fish, whether it's one fish, I don't know, keeps moving like, I'll show you when I flick this out. Take the clip off so I can go to 20 next. Keeps moving on this same line. I just think, I don't know what it's doing. All I can see is a vortex. Can't see its head or anything. It's moving now, like a massive vortex of water. So I don't know if it's one fish, a shoal of fish, but it's really close. There we go. if that goes, it'll be some bite. But it's moved that many times, I just think, just in case it's a shoal, I think it's worth maybe even just 5 minutes. Probably won't see it move now, I've chucked on top of it, but on and off since I've been here, it's vortexed in virtually the same, over under a metre. And I just think, there's a fish there, why not have a quick? Look, it's one of them things where it might not move, or a 10 pounder might drag my rod straight in. That's why I just feel it's like, I don't normally like, having started at 16, I wouldn't normally come back towards myself unless it was really late on and I'd put some bait there. But the fact that that fish keeps moving there has just made me want to have a quick look at it. And I know that's sort of probably, they catch a lot of fish here at like 7 to 9 metres on the pole. And sometimes they say, oh, 16 metres isn't great. 7 to 9 metres, they seem to feed better there. And that's probably that sort of area where that fish has moved. So it's an area they're used to finding bait. I just think it's worth 5 minutes of my time, because I haven't got a lot else to go on at the minute. That little bit of wind that I was talking about has now vanished, and we've been going 50 minutes. But there's like all the little pinprick bubbles have pretty much stopped. And if anything, the lake looks totally dead at the minute. Now, I'm going to give this 5 minutes, and I might even bypass that sort of 20 metre line and just sort of go straight down the middle and have a half-hour chuck. Might change my hook bait as well and I might put 2 little. So there's a carp just moved there right down the middle, slightly to the left. But I feel like now I want to fish. And the fact I'm sitting on my own means they're not going to want to come to me. Since I've chucked there, that fish hasn't moved either, no liners. But I'm thinking, almost revert to what I call small, tiny little feeders, but what I call Boddington style, as in, pick what I think's the best area in my swim to get a bite, chuck it there, make sure it's fishing right, just sit on it. Have a half-hour chuck and see where we are from there. Because there's so little moving and I've had no indications. Right, so I'm only going to give this, it's been out 2 minutes 40 now. But it was one of them, I just felt like it was worth, it had moved that many times there, it's worth 5 minutes. Just in case it was a feeding fish, or there was 2 or 3 fish there, and it just pulled the rod in. What I don't understand is why it was moving in exactly the same spot all the time. Like when I looked right and left, oh, just had a little tap then. When I looked right and left, there was no signs. So I honestly don't know whether it was one real big fish or 5 or 6 or even 7 or 8 like a shoal. And that's why there was constant sort of displacement of water. But what's surprising me is I've had no big liners. I thought I'd have an odd big liner if there was any amount of fish milling around in front of me. But there's plenty of time. But I'm getting to that stage where I'd like a fish in the net. And I think if this doesn't go in the next sort of 3 minutes, then my next cast will be where I fancy into obviously totally new water because there's no one chucking from the other bank, and then sit on it. I mean, there's an odd little skimmer topping like that one there, but no carp moving anymore. There's loads of F1s in here as well, but no sign of them either at the minute. But I do think a couple of bubbles just come up, like sort of quite a long way across. Next cast, I'm going to try and drop it where them bubbles are and then just sit on it. And hopefully, the more line I've got out as well, the more chance of a few indications. And if I can get a few indications, I can start to work something out. But it was worth a drop, I think, short. But as yet, it's been out 4 minutes 50 and it's not moved. So give it another minute and then I'm going to take that 20 metre clip off and drop it down the middle. So I'll update then. Well, last time we spoke, I was obviously trying to mug that fish that was swimming under the 5-6 metres out. But I gave it 7 minutes, it never moved. So I bypassed the 20 metre line, went straight out, roughly, I haven't sticked it, I've chucked straight there, so out from 25, 26 metres, slightly to the right, and I got a 10 out skimmer within 2 minutes, which wasn't ideal. But I've gone back out, and I've got the same clip, but I've gone to the left, so like probably 5 metres away from where I caught the skimmer, and it's been out 6 minutes, and we've got a fish on. I'm pretty sure it's a carp. I don't think it's a big one, but it'll get us off the mark. Also switched the hook baits, because my plan was to have sort of a half-hour chuck. I've switched to 2 double wafter. This is actually on 2 4 mil orange. Just a bigger bait if I'm going to leave it out a bit longer. It's quite scrappy, mainly I think because of the fact the water's so shallow. But it just goes to show I've probably got that starting line, considering the lake's empty, I've got the starting line slightly wrong. But I still think it was the right approach, just with the lake empty, it's gone against me. As you can see there, double 4 mil. Not a very big carp by Larford standards, but where there's one, there's hopefully more. So pop him in the net and get straight back out there. What I will say, when I catch one, always go back. The reason I clip up when I'm chucking about is so that if I catch one, I can go back to the same spot, because I'm a massive believer in the fact where there's one, there's more. You see there, a little bit of pellet on the point of the hook. That's 2 4 mil wafters on a size 10 QM. It's a big hook, but it's a big bait as well. So, I as I've already said today, I just believe bigger hook. Can't find it harder to deal with. Even that little carp there, a size 10 isn't big for that fish's mouth. So I'm going to go back to exactly. I've lined it up. I always line up with something visually. So where I caught that fish was between the sort of platform that's dead opposite me and the next one. So now I can literally go dead straight back to the same spot. And if I don't get a bite this chuck there, then I'll move again. But I'm just a massive believer in the fact that where there's one carp, there's more. What else is noticeable is the fact it is slightly deeper there as well. And as I'm going out, as I already sort of mentioned, it just gets deeper. Well, I've chucked out with 2 yellows then. I'm going to do this one with 2 orange. That's all I do. Nice fine baiting needle. 2, keeping on that one, 2 4 mil wafters. Obviously I've got longer hair than normal, just to take into account the bigger bait. And little bait stops. I'm just herringing it what I'd call conventionally, rather than some people use a speed stop or a bayonet. I think with these little ones, it's just got 2 4 mils sitting there. I just think it's something different. I mean, a lot of people fish single big wafter or a single small one, but not many people put 2 on. Like I say, it didn't do any harm. Yes, it wasn't a big fish like I was hoping, but it's a fish. And like I said, at least I feel like now I've got something to work with. There's a few little just had an indication then. Not a big liner, but I had a few little tiny indications before it, which to be honest I thought were skimmers. But then proper pull and it was fish on. I mean, my plan now would be hopefully catch another one from this spot. It would be nice to keep catching from this spot, but catch what I can from this spot and then literally look to move again. And whether I'll move to the sides or whether I'll just literally go a metre further, I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll sort of decide on that as we go along. But at least I feel like now perhaps I'm fishing in amongst the fish. Like I said, because I'm on my own, probably starting to short was wrong, but I still believe it gave me a really good chance of a quick fish. And in a match situation, my chances would have been even higher. It's purely on the basis today that there's no one else up. Well, there's a pleasure angler now right down the other end. I've got, if anything, today I've just got too much room. And if those fish don't want to feed when you've got too much room, they'll back away. But in a match situation, when there was someone, even every other peg, those fish would be swimming more, they'd be looking for safer water. And by starting short, I feel I'd have gained an advantage. As it happens today, I probably didn't gain anything, but that's the chance you sort of take. Another little indication. And again, not sure whether they're just little skimmers. That's another reason for having the slightly bigger hook bait on. Yeah, they'll still take it, but just try and give myself a chance to catch in a carp. Just moved I had another chuck on that sort of 25 metre line-ish. I had a load of little taps, but no sign of a proper fish. I think the little taps are little skimmers. There's always that question in your mind, should I just fish for the little skimmers and take what comes and hope a few carp move in later on? But I sort of came here to try and catch carp, so I'm loath to do that at the moment. So I've just moved another 2.5 metres further across just to see if I can, it's like the line twisted around my finger. Goes in, that little 18 gram hybrid goes in lovely, nice and quiet. It's just a question of finding some fish. Like I say, I feel like where I'm chucking now, I could probably go back down to a single little wafter, probably catch a few skimmers. But is that really what I'm here for? You know, and what I'm realistically in my head thinking now is there's no sign of any carp short at all. I thought I heard one somewhere, but it wasn't anywhere near in the vicinity of where I'm fishing. I fancy a carp across. In fact, I'm going to give this chuck sort of 15 minutes, unless I get loads of signs, which I can't see. I'm going to try and drop one like 5 metres off the far bank. You know, on the basis that I just think the fish want to get as far away from me as possible. They're not feeding, so they're not going to come to any bait at the moment. So I think my best bet is probably to get as far away from where I'm sitting as possible. So if this doesn't go this chuck, I think it's a case of I should change the hybrid size probably to a 30 grammer. Keep the same actual size feeder, but just change the body size. So it's still a mini. So a little tap there, and it's like there's loads of little fish there, which, to be honest, is a bit annoying. Unless I'm going to fish for them, I'd rather the tip just sat still, so I knew everything was fishing right. At the minute, with these little tiny indications from small fish, I feel like they're possibly eating all the pellets and there's nothing left for a carp, so I can't leave it out as long as I want to. But if this doesn't go round, like I said, I've got 11-foot SLR set up there, and I just think it's worth dropping one like 5-6 metres off the far bank. That's where I'd be. If the carp want to get away from me, that's about the furthest point, obviously without going left or right. You know, I'm sitting down the middle now. And other than that one fish first chuck, which is a little one, I feel like I haven't found any amount of fish. Whether that's because it's so cold, like my feet are literally blocks of ice. It's so cold they're not feeding and they're not moving or not, I don't know. But I still feel like there must be a ball of them tight somewhere. And like, if they have backed off, the strange thing is I haven't seen any topping over there. Like, I'd expect to have seen a few fish topping on the far bank if that's where they've gone. But I've got literally nothing else to go on at the minute. Like I said, I've had no big line bites where you think, oh, there's fish swimming through the line. There's nothing moving. There is a little tiny ripple got up again now, but there's no fish bubbling. But there must be a ball of fish sat somewhere, that's where I'm looking at it. So I think if this doesn't go round in the next sort of 12 minutes, pick up the SLR, chuck it right across and see what happens. Well, I've gone, literally just after I stopped talking to you, I saw a fish top down the lake, right, there's an aerator down there in the middle, 2 or 3 top there, and I was thinking they've all gone there, and after saying it, one topped, looked about 5 metres off the far bank, so I wound in straight away, picked up the SLR, chucked it, it's gone, if I do say so to myself, perfect, and it's only been out 5 minutes. The interesting thing was there were no taps or knocks. It's literally been out 5 minutes and it's gone round lovely and slow. Again, it's not a big fish, but it's not, I don't think it's a skimmer. Maybe an F1, I'm thinking, the way it's for, as in it hasn't really for. But a fish topped, literally I've dropped the feeder pretty much right on top of it. Looked like 5 metres off the far bank. No, it's another little mirror. I always think the sign of a hard day when you catch carp and they're small, like this one. Again on the double orange, nice or cold as well, right in the bottom. Probably £3. It's another pull, and now I'm starting to think there's maybe a chance of a few pulls over there. Just goes to show that there's no doubt whether it's depth or more likely the fact I'm sat here, the fish have backed away. I've switched to a little 30-gram mini hybrid. So what I liked about that last chuck as well was it never moved with skimmers. Like where I've been chucking before. Loads of little knocks and taps. I've clipped it up again so I can go straight back to the same spot. It looked about 5 metres off. Not, you know, I mean, but I'm getting a little bit of a drop, so there's enough water there for fish to eat. But like I said, that'd only been out 5 minutes on the 2 orange. But there are no liners. But I just like the fact that it just went round out the blue. I mean, what is really noticeable now it's gone calm, I do think the bulk of the fish have gone that way. So I'm on peg 18. I'd say the bulk of the fish that are moving are peg sort of 18, 15, sort of 14, 13, 12. I mean, I'm sure it's no coincidence there's a pleasure angler at the bottom end now, and those fish are halfway between probably me and him. They've just totally moved out of the way. But now I'm fishing across. If I could just find my baiting needle, that is. There it is. Don't know, I feel like I'm in with more of a chance. A bite. This time of year when it's this cold, you get so much confidence just from getting a bite like that one. And all of a sudden, like, going from feeling like I've got no chance to like I could be onto something. What I will say is I can't imagine I'm going to get 10 in 10 chucks over there. But if I can nick another one from that spot and maybe try working the far bank a little bit, and maybe I'll be able to nick a few more. The fact that it's a long way away from me, the way the fish have responded today has to be a good thing. Like I said, they're definitely not feeding or coming to bait. Just on the 2, size 10, 2 4mm orange. I did try, you can see by my hand, when I was down the middle, I did have a couple of chucks with the goo, but don't feel like I was chucking into any carp anyway, but it didn't do anything. That's not to say it's not worth a go over there. I've also got these little beauties as well. I don't know if I could get them over there. It's a little micro hybrid. If you see, where's a normal one? If you look at sort of body size, that's a micro, and that's a mini. Micro's a new size, but I feel like that would be worth a chuck if I could find some fish to chuck it at. Because a very small feeder holds hardly any bait, hardly any disturbance. But I'm not convinced I'll get that over the far bank. I mean, it's 20 gram, and it's nice and compact and heavy, but it'll take some chucking to get it over there. But it's an option. I could even chuck it on the 3/4 line. But it'd just be nice to get another carp now. This chuck, maybe even a proper one. Like I said earlier, I've always found when it's really hard and you're not on a pile of fish, when you get one, it always tends to be small, which is pretty much what's happened today. Probably the two smallest carp in Larford, but like 1 8 to 10 pounder, and you feel a lot better about the situation. And like I've chucked this out, it's been out 3.5 minutes, and there's no, all right, the tip's heavier on this, it's a 2-ounce tip, but there's no little taps and knocks, which makes me think I might be fishing where there's carp now, and where there's carp, there's not any skimmers. I always feel better, as in getting no indication from small fish, sitting and waiting for a proper pull, than getting loads of taps and knocks and then expecting a carp to come out the blue. So I feel like I'm fishing properly now, which has got to be a good thing. So that's up to date. Hopefully I'll be back in a couple of minutes and maybe have another one on. It just seems since that wind dropped, a few fish moves. I can see them moving down by that aerator now. And it just became more apparent where they're sitting. But if we can get another one this chuck, then all of a sudden I'm up and running. I can then maybe even think about feeding some bait. But I'm loath to kill the middle off, possibly by feeding bait there at the moment. I do think late on there'll be a chance over some bait of a carp. But we're 2 hours 15 minutes in now. So let's hope I can nick a couple more off this far bank. And oh, that's another bite. You know, I was talking about skimmers. Pretty sure this is a skimmer. No taps and knocks, but if it's a carp, it's a very small one. But it's another bite. Bear in mind I've had 2 skimmers and 2 carp now. This is a skimmer, it's a skimmer. So it's definitely not a carp unless it's running towards me at 100 mile an hour. It's dropped back, to be fair, whereas the last one was a steady pull. No taps and knocks though, or certainly none that I saw. Yeah, skimmer, slightly bigger one, but still a skimmer. I guess in a winter match, I mean, it's best getting on for a pound. I wouldn't be, see, even he can get the 2. I wouldn't be disappointed catching him. It's just like, I feel I've only got a limited amount of casts over there. And now I've just wasted one catching a skimmer. If you notice, I'm always scanning the water, just trying to see if I could see a fish move anywhere. Just to give me a clue. Because there's every chance I've caught that little carp and then they've moved again. Because it's a still, I can literally see everything. But 2 bites in 2 chucks. I'm going to push this one slightly left, I think, as that's where the bulk of the fish. I've been moving. I have to admit that wasn't my best ever cast. Good enough, but didn't go in with that nice little plop that I like. Both them bites, interestingly, were like 6 and 7 minutes, so not waited long when I found a few fish. What am I saying about no fish? Exactly that spot where I underarmed that chuck earlier, one's just vortexed again. Bizarre. Don't know why it moves in that spot and nowhere else either. Almost like you'd think it was tethered to the bottom. But now that wind's gone, you see, I can see everything again. So. Right, next time, hopefully we're back in about 6 minutes time playing carp number 3. Well, that little carp off the far bank, been a bit of a false dawn. I had that skimmer while I was talking to you, and then I've had a little 8-ounce F1, but there's just no line bites, no more bites. This one's been out 15 minutes. The only thing I have noticed is, last time I spoke to you, there was loads of bubbles up by the aerator, like 5 pigs to my left. And in the last sort of 15 minutes, they've gradually started to work their way my way. They're probably like a peg down now to my left, so not far at all, but it's like, it's got to be fish. Whether they're carp or skimmers, I'm not 100%. I'm presuming they're carp, but it's just so noticeable how they're gradually working this way a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I've just changed back down, just took that 30 grammer off, just slid it off, put an 18 grammer on, put 4 bread discs on. I haven't tried bread yet today, so it's worth a go. And I'm going to chuck on the bubbles. So I'm just going to make this up. I've took the clip off that rod I've been fishing with, the other rod, not the SLR. I don't need the SLR to reach these bubbles. And what I'm going to do is drop this. There's big clouds of them now coming up. It's got to be fish. And I might only get like 1 shot at this for a bite. So I'm going to try 4 bread discs. I'm going to reel this in now, nice and slow. Amazing all that, I'm covering all that water, but there's no line bites or anything. And the interesting thing is, to my right, the whole lake, look, oh look at that, just spooked one halfway across. It's almost like there is a shoal of fish swimming this way. Because for an hour ago, like right down there by the aerator, there were fish moving, bubbles everywhere. Just this area looked totally devoid. But now all of a sudden, it looks like I might get a bite of the cherry. See if I can drop it. That's right in amongst them. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll soon find out. But it's literally just past the first cluster. Look at that, indications as I'm tightening up. Whether I've spooked them now. My worry is, like, because I've had to chuck a little bit left to get in amongst them, that I'll send them back down again. But I just really need a fish, and another indication. So I've definitely dropped it in amongst, and another indication. A few fish, and another sign. Unless it's a massive shoal of skimmers, that's a possibility. Let's get the other feeder ready, made up. Drop this one down to 18 as well. 24, 24, 18. Oh, it's a skimmer. All the best laid plans. 4 bread discs. Is it a skimmer? It might be a little F1. Look at that, there's a carp move there as well on the surface. There's definitely fish there. Is it a little F1? I think it's a little F1. Yeah, it's not going to be a skimmer, I don't think. One of the new little stocky. Look at that, there's another carp just moved in front of me. There's me telling everyone it's devoid. And I've seen more fish move in the last 10 seconds than I've seen all day. Not what I was hoping for, but proof that by looking for the bubbles, I definitely have located a few fish. There's one moving literally. I'm hoping you can't see that on camera because it'll make me look bad. There he is again, just making sure you can see him. So I'm just changing this feeder to, I'm not going to chuck on top of that fish, it's just top really close in. There he is again, he's a big fish and all. He's top light. Shows how far they move, because his first movement was to my right and now he's moving away to my left. Shame that wasn't a carp. Let's just see if I can see them. They're dead in line with that life buoy. Big clusters of them. Could just be a perfect cluster of F1s, to be fair. It might not even be any carp. Well, I said you were going to join me, hopefully playing a carp, and that's exactly what's turned out, but it's not come from where I last chucked. I think there's an old lead bed or something there. Basically, what happened was, while you were watching, 2 fish topped really short on that line where they've been vortexing on and off all day. And then as soon as I stopped talking to you, it moved again. And I just thought, is it worth another look before I put some bait in? And I've literally dropped it down there. Two little 4mm wafters, and it's gone within a minute and a half. I'm in the same spot I dropped in earlier, so it's not like I've not tried it. For some reason, I think there might be an old lily bed there or something. And unless it's dragging something, this feels a proper fish. But literally, it's just in that spot. I've underarmed it to where I've hooked it. And it feels like a proper one. Almost like in this last 15 minutes, even though it's only just gone 1 o'clock, quite a few fish have started topping and moving. It's definitely a decent fish, this one. Just amazing where I hooked it, considering I tried there, no signs. And drop it in and you get one straight away. One actually topped on the far bank as well, and I was half thinking about chucking there. But it just felt like before I put bait in, it was worth a look again. And so it's proved, and like, it just shows you if you can get on a fish, you don't have to wait for a bite at all. But equally, you can't just keep chucking all over the place, because all you're doing is spooking them. It's definitely, I don't think it's a coincidence that I saw that big mass of bubbles moving up the lake. Taking my time with it, on the basis it's the first proper one I've hooked, and we're just over 3 hours in. I'm hoping it's like a proper big fish. It's on the top. I think it's a common. I can see the wafters. It is a big fish. Let's see if we can get him. Oh, he's a shuffler. That's a proper one. It's amazing how a day can change on one bite. I reckon that's a double, I think. Thing is, that's not even the fish that... Oh, that's a big fish. That's not the fish I saw topping either. Proper nailed him right in the bottom lip as well. He certainly wasn't coming off. I reckon that's definitely a double, but rather than hold him up now, I'll show you him at the end, because I think there's a good chance. Well, my confidence is certainly up. I'll pop him in the net, and I might get another one, so I'm going to pop him in the net and reload that feeder. Well, I've just had that great big comment. I think 12, 13 pound, like massive bonus on a day like today. Just dropped it straight back in the same spot, but it's not moved. But literally, I've had a little sign there, but more of a small fish. I'm thinking about taking a gamble now. There'll be an hour and a half to go. I think I want to feed some bait. It's very shallow, so what I'm thinking is, I might try and do it, I think I'm going to try and do it on 2 lines at angles. So I'm going to put 3 feeders in on what I call the spot where that fish come from. And then 3 feeders to the left as well. Just so I've got 2 bites of the cherry. With the water being so shallow and clear, I think they're going to spook really easy. So, definitely some sort of snag there, which I think is why there's an odd fish hanging around it. But when I reeled it in then, it felt like caught onto something. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a capped, I'd call it like a medium sized bait up feeder. See the cap at the top? And I'm going to put a mixture of corn, four mils with a few micros to cap it. So you can see a few 4 mils at the top, a bit of corn and a few micros. I clipped this up at 12 metres. Clipped it up at 12 metres. It's emptied straight away. They do empty quick. Got no lead on it either. So it's nice. I'm trying to empty the bait before it hits the bottom. I'm going to put 3 feeders in on that line. I'm just not 100% certain on this other line. Unless I fish it at a real big angle. Oh. Empty it out nice and fast. Just getting to that time of day, and where I caught that fish was close in. A few more fish starting to move. I think that last hour I can possibly then just sit over bait. Right, so let's put 3 in. So there's a bit of bait there. Just a question of where I put, whether I just settle that for 1 line or whether I put 2 in. My gut instinct is 2, and I'll put the next one over there. Put just corn in this one and a few micros. I'm going to put it at a nice wide angle so it's out of the way. Put it at the life buoy. Still nice and short. It's like a bit of a throwaway line. So if I do start catching on that one and it dies, I can drop on this one. So it's a bit of a gamble, but we're getting into that time, the last hour in an ideal world. It'd be nice to be able to just sit there fishing for 3 proper pulls off 2 short lines. Just want to make sure there's enough distance between the 2. This one on my left, I think, is not my banker line. Put a few 4 mils on it. I think the one on the right where I caught that big common, that's the line. If I'm gonna do any good, as in like catch 3 late fish. Right, that's them in. So they're at 12 metres, and that's 12 metres from all the distances I talk about from the rod top. Right, I'm going to have one more chuck on the SLR. Just going to change that back to the 30 grammer. Just put that back up there. So. Just to let this, rather than, I don't really fancy chucking straight on this bait, particularly with how hard it's been. I mean, that bait might be kiss of death, but I feel like I've got to do something positive. I mean, I could have just maybe just sat there underarming for the rest of the day and hoped I got 2 more, but I'd rather give myself a chance of a big finish if I can. Just that the lake seems to be coming alive a bit. I think that would be worth a carp. Gone slightly right with that, so it's in new water again. I think this time of day now there'll be a few fish up and down that far side. So what we got? An hour and 25-ish. I'm thinking 15 minutes to let them 2 lot, unless I see something that makes me think, oh, I need to get on that line. I think 15 minutes fishing this far bank, and then I'm just going to drop it short. Maybe have half hour just sat over that bait. You know, I mean, I shall fish with the other rod. I'll leave that rod for baiting up. And what I've done, although at 12 metres, because it's so calm, I can underarm it. I'm using like markers in the water, if you know what I mean, like a tree, so I know exactly where the bait is without clipping up. Otherwise, I'd have to clip up. If it was blowing a gale, I'd be tempted to stick it at 12, drop on the bait, and then take the clip off and just use a line marker pen, then mark the line. Obviously if I get one, play it, get it out, then just cast out until the pink emerges on the line again, clip it back up, and I know I'm fishing on the bait. Because it's so calm today, I don't need to do that because I can underarm it. As I said, using the markers actually on the water, like the dark against the light, just a tree trunk. It's just dead easy. So I'm going to do that. But on another day, if you're thinking, how does he get clipped up at 12 metres and then land big fish? I'll take the clip off, use the line marker, which then gives me the ability to get back to it nice and quick. So what I wouldn't want to be doing is hooking one, catching it, getting off my box, re-sticking. All that commotion is only going to scare fish on a day like today. So normally use the line marker pen, but because it's flat today, I can get away with it. So if my luck's in, I might be able to nick one now off that far bank, and then I can sit on the bait for the last little while, and hopefully it'd be nice to see a few bubbles on that bait. Hopefully if I can catch maybe two big ones off that bait late on. It's funny because the lake's gone quiet again now. So I caught that big common in a little period of movement. Now it seems to have settled right down, but having had one bite short, I do fancy sitting there, providing there's no small fish problem, sitting there waiting and maybe getting another one. So that's the plan. So probably join me again when I'm going to drop it in on that short line. Well, we've got dead on an hour to go. I went across on the SL, I got a little F1 straight away, but I don't know. Sometimes you just get a feeling that it's not going to happen over there. I felt like it would have happened earlier if it was going to. The funny thing is, it feels like the lake's switched off again. I've just dropped in over where I put them 3 feeders in on the right-hand line, but since I put them in, I haven't seen anything. Like, I haven't seen the sign of a carp like over them, I haven't seen any bubbles. Can't see anything on the left-hand side either. Feels like the lake's just like switched off again. There's no bubbles anywhere, like down the middle. You know, I think plan-wise, obviously I really fancied 2 or 3 bites on this short line now in the last hour. Now I'm not seeing anything, starting to wonder whether I'm going to get them. You know, I haven't tried the left-hand side yet, but this has been out 4 or 5 minutes on that over the bait on the right. And there's a few little taps, but nothing to make me think, oh, there's a couple of doubles swimming around. The only other option I've got, which I might consider with like half an hour to go, is to put a bit of bait down the edge. When I say down there, I'm not going to put it against the bank because there's no water, but almost put it like parallel with where I'm sitting and then down to the left. I don't see any point going to the right because there's no sign of any fish up there, whereas there has been fish moving long down to the left. So I'm thinking a couple of feeders down there, and then maybe if nothing's happening, I'll sit the last 15 minutes down the edge. Because it literally feels really dead again. I expect once I caught that common, I sort of felt like, here we go, we're going to have a good finish. And I put that bait in thinking a few fish will want to feed late on. But it's like nothing again. There's no fish topping. Normally at Larford, I always think they do respond to, you know, I'm not an expert on this, I don't come enough to be an expert on the venue, but I normally think a few fish feed late here, even on the coldest of days. It's just strange how, like, what, is that a bubble? Since I've like caught that fish there, I've not seen a vortex there either. All that vortexing that was going on earlier, it's like I catch one fish there and then nothing. Not seen a vortex there since. Just a couple of little tiny bubbles there then. Probably similar area to where I put the bait. The left-hand side I haven't seen anything, but I'd expect to see an odd vortex again, or a fish bow wave off, or get a liner. Especially this time of night. and obviously waiting for a bite. Rod wise, for sure, it's just 10-foot tournament. Reel 4012 TDR, and just loaded with 8-pound pulse. Just really strong, bulletproof line. Quite low diameter for its breakage strain, but just don't let you down. Oh, what's that? It's not a carp. Then I'm just fishing that mini hybrid still. Gone back to the 18 grammer just to create a little bit less disturbance. It's an F1. But like when I hit that, there was no carp battle waving all over. More of a case, just the only fish that moved was this one. You know, probably getting on for a pound. It's difficult, 'cause maybe it's just been a day when nothing's fed. You know, and I'm beating myself up a bit thinking I haven't got it quite right. When in actual fact, you can't catch what's not feeding. And the water is, as my feet will testify, absolutely freezing. Just going to switch this to the left hand side now. Now I've caught a fish off the right. It's probably just over the back of the bait, that is, but I don't mind that, because again, because if there's a fish there, at least I'll get an indication. Stuck with the 2 double wafter. It'd be nice to drop it in and get a really quick pull, or just see a sign where you think, oh, there's one there. I always think when you're fishing over bait, like I am now, chances of a quick bite are high, because any fish that are there are actually feeding. Oh, that's an indication. Whether it was a carp or not, I don't know, but it was an indication. See, I haven't had any big liners today, like where you think big slow liners where you think there's fish swimming through. I say it's just strange. One of them days. I just do feel like the fish. Oh. I'll tell you what, there was another. This isn't a big fish, but there was a big fish there, because I saw it shoot off the back. That's what I mean about a quick bite though over the bait. Could be, trying to think one step ahead, that I've cut the right hand line off by opening this left hand line, and those fish were coming from the left, which is where they're moving. I don't know what this is, an F1? No, a little, really small carp, I think. Yeah, little carp, little mirror, beautiful little fish. I've got 4 carp now, they just don't weigh what I expected them to. I was thinking 4 for like £35. Look at that, £1.5, £2. And in reality, I've got 4 for, I don't know, 3, 6, 8, 20 odd pound, which isn't bad. It'd be nice to get at least one more proper one. The only good thing there was when I hit that fish, I definitely see another fish bow wave away. Just like buses, 2 in 2, but again, this one's an F1. The only thing was, just before that, I had an indication. This is the next chuck, after catching that little mirror that you saw. The next chuck I had an indication. Well, I had an indication, saw a bow wave go off. Then just before that, I thought I had a big line bite as well. All on that left-hand line. The right-hand line looks like completely dead. But I'm really strongly suspecting now that the reason it's so dead is because the fish were coming from the left, and by feeding 2 lines, it hasn't quite worked like I thought it was going to work. And I've cut the fish that were moving into that right-hand swim, I've cut them off. But It's not the end of the world. It would have been nice, although actually, yeah, there's one on. Tell you what, going to use that to feed that line. There's one on that right hand line now. I can see a vortex. Got to be worth a quick look. They don't tend to stay in your swim that long. That's the first, he's still there, indication I've seen there. Since I caught that big carp of a carp in the swim. It's just gone over the top of him. Keep it nice and slack. Oh, had a liner then straight away. Could have spooked him, to be fair. When you see a fish like that, I just think you've got to have a look. Often they're not on their own either. And that's the first time I've seen, like I said, since I had that big common, I've seen any sign of a fish. And it won't have hurt, that right hand line, just to put a feeder full of micros in. You know, just there's a little bit more bait on the bottom. We've got 25, roughly 40, just under 45 minutes to go. I think I did, oh, just had another liner then. Not a big liner, but indication there was a fish there. That vortex has stopped now. But it's just that on that right hand line, it's dark water, so it's very easy to see. Another little indication when there's fish there. Don't think these indications I'm getting now are carp. I'm not saying there's no carp there, but they're not big liners, they're like little sharp pulls. Just had half a feeling if I dropped it in, it might just drag the rod in straight away. If not, what I might do, now there's a few things starting to happen, or what I'm hoping there is anyway, I might have this chuck, I'll give it another couple of minutes and put one in. When I say one in, a baiting up feeder back in, full of corn and stuff, and go back to the left hand line. I'm still setting it up, give myself another chance off it. You know, I don't know what's in it. I suspect there's still bait there. But when you're not fishing a line, it's always hard to judge what's been eaten. Another F1, but it's just not really happening. There's some F1s there now, but it's like, I feel like it's a bit late. What, we've got 20 minutes. It's a bit late in the day to be fishing for F1s. What I'm going to do, I'm desperate for this last carp. Like one more big carp would make me feel a bit better about the day. I'm going to gamble and put some bait down this edge to my left. Just going to put 3 in quick. Then unless I see something on it, I'm not even going to chuck on it. But it's sort of line. A few fish might come on. Something might come on instantly, and I'll see it if it does. We're at that stage now where I need a carp. And my best chance of catching it might be in a depth. Oh, all the baits come out of that one. That's the only downside to these feeders. If you load them really soft, like I just loaded that one, it's a fine line between not loading it hard enough and loading it too hard. It's better. I'm going to put 3 in, then I'm going to put 1 in front of me and just chuck straight on it, because I feel sometimes the carp can come on the bait really quick. There's a fish there. I'm not gonna, because there is a fish on that line in front of me at the minute, so I'm not going to put one on it. Just just going to chuck my feeder on top of it and see if it picks it up. I'm going to put a single on, because I'm getting a few F1s. I'm not catching many, but I feel they're there. I'm going to put a single little boilie on. A single little wafter, little yellow, so it looks like a grain of corn. Just to give myself a chance of catching one. There's definitely a fish there now. Just gone over the back of it again. Just be nice to finish with a half decent carp. So where I've put that bait there, it's still at 12 metres. I can see if anything decides to swim over it, I'll be able to see it. Well, I think it's safe to say that it just hasn't really happened. We've got, what, 4 minutes left. I'm sat down the edge now. There's fish coming in down the edge, but they're coming in singles, which makes them virtually impossible to catch. But like, I just feel like the way the session's gone, I need a gamble. I mean, looking back in hindsight, I don't think I've got it right. I fished how I felt would be right, but looking back, oh, no, line bite. If I was coming back again, and it was going to fish the same, I think I'd fish it a bit different. I'd probably start at sort of 20, 22 metres, and I'd look to stay there. Maybe fish like a single wafter, like a little 4mm, 14, QM1. Just fish for bites, not chase. You know what I mean? And take the little F1s, take the skimmers. If a little carp came along, take them as well. You know what I mean? Don't try and be picky. You know, I've came here today to catch carp, and in my head I thought I could catch 5 or 6 big carp, but it just hasn't happened. The little tricks of moving, trying new lines, goo, nothing's really, even putting bait in has worked a little bit towards the end. As in, I could have caught some fish late, but by then I was looking for carp, and the fish that come over it, by and large, were F1s and very small carp. I think I've been a little bit unlucky with size of fish. Like, I've had 4 carp, but 3 of them are very small. And like I say, I've gambled on this edge line, and there is fish there, but again, I can't get one. I just think the big issue is the fact there's never more than one there. And it's like, I've chased shadows a little bit last half hour, and I think if I was coming back last half hour, perhaps I'd only bait 1 swim, thinking, well, I'm only going to get 1 fish off it, and then just sit on it and do it that way. And I tried to be a little bit clever and give myself a chance of catching extra fish, and it hasn't really paid off at all. In fact, it's been one of them days where very little's paid off. So I'm not even fishing that line, the right-hand sort of 12-metre line, and the fish is just bow waved off it then. And there's not even a line in the water or anything, and that's been the problem I've been up against all day. Totally flat calm. The fish have backed away, and then this last hour and a half, a few fish have drifted back towards me. They've proved virtually impossible to catch. There is a fish on that right-hand line again. But there's fish there. I mean, if it was one of those days when everything's going right, I'd have dropped it down this edge and it would have gone straight round. Because there's been enough fish come over it, but it just doesn't. Oh, hang on. I've got one. I don't think it's a big one, but it'll be a fish to finish on. I think I mown that one on Des Ship style. I think that's what they call it. That's how that's probably been out there 8-9 minutes. I think that's how I should have fished a bit more. Should have stayed short, been a bit more patient. I think the problem's been when I've gone long, there's been more small fish there, so I haven't been able to leave it in long enough. You know, and I haven't fished for the small fish, so I've compounded it. Like I said, if I came back, there's two ways I'd have fished it. I've been really short and waited for odd carp bites, but they might not have come. I'm totally gambling that they'd have come. Or I'd have fished sort of 20 to 25 metres, little feeder, small hook baits, and just took whatever came along. There we go. Not a big fish, but if it was a match, at least I'd be finishing with a carp. Is it probably four pound maximum, I'd have said. I mean, so I did say I was going to catch you 5 carp. I've caught my 5, but they're just a lot. See if I can pick this one up. A lot smaller than I intended. Oh, without dropping him back. They've been too hard fought to drop. Come on, son. Come on. There you go. Really pretty, great nick. But not the 10 pounder I was hoping on. But equally better than nothing. So I'm going to pop him in the net, get packed up, and then we'll have a look at the catch shop. So there you go. It's been a tough day. I think that pretty much sums it up. Tried a lot of things, and to be honest, none of them will work. But I'll give you a few ideas for what I'd try next time. And on another day, I do think if the fishing had been busier, the way I fished it would have worked. But sitting on your own on a lake like this, when the water's clear, cold, and the fish don't want to feed, you're always asking for trouble. But we've still had, you know, when you look there, I've had plenty of bites. And I do believe if I'd have fished for bites, I could have had a few more, which is what winter fishing's all about. So that's it for me this month, and I'll see you on the next edition of Feeder Fishing.